I got quite a bit of feedback for a very simple quote that I put out on Twitter the other day that just was simply, it's August 1st, and we got football in August. If anything's going to make us feel better about how close we are to the season, yes, we are in the month that finally provides us football. I know not Clemson football, but then it's only a couple days away from September 3rd, and Clemson football taking on Georgia Tech, I believe, on national TV to start things out. We are delivering for you all fall camp previews live. We've got Clemson up right now, and two of our favorite people here at the Voice of College Football. We got Jason Priester from allclemson.com on SI, so please join him there. Jason joins me pretty much every week to talk Clemson football. And Brian Knight, a.k.a.
Bobby Durkins.
Every way that Pat's going to go.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh.
I don't
Here
know.
we go.
I'm losing it. No. How's
Brian,
it going,
we
Mark?
appreciate you being here as well. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How about you guys?
Doing good. I'm ready for that game against Georgia Tech. I'm ready, man. I'm ready. I've got to straighten up my couch because it looks terrible and I can see myself and I'm going to stare at it the entire time. So, not that fixing the couch is going to fix
we've got Bill in front, Bill in back. We've got all varieties of hat selections here represented. In the live chat, everyone, leave your comments and questions for Jason and for Brian, and we will get to them. All right. Jason, we're going to let you lead off. Fall camp. As you were just saying, you're resting up right now. This is your last day of rest, pretty much, right? This is it.
I will be hitting the road bright and early in the morning. Clemson starts fall camp tomorrow afternoon. You know, we get to talk with Dabo Sweeney for a little while before the start of first practice, and then we are off and running.
Let's take quarterback off the table real quick. What is the most intriguing aspect of camp for you?
For me, it's the offensive line. You know, I fully went into last year thinking Clemson's offensive line was going to be much improved, and it just wasn't. And I think a lot of that came down to the lack of having a bona fide center, and then injuries really started to take its toll. And you know, they used 6 different starting rotations through the first 9 games, and you're never going to have a lot of success that way. So for me, it's offensive line, and especially that center position, and watching how Will Putnam makes that transition from guard to center, because it's kind of a repeat of last year. We saw Matt Bockhorst try to make that same transition. Although he, to be fair, he did not have all of spring practice the way Putnam had. You know, he got kind of thrown into the fire to start fall camp. But if Clemson's offense is going to get back on track, you know, and we're not talking about quarterback, to me, it starts and stops up front and the interior of that offensive line.
Brian, what you got for us?
Exactly what he said. The offensive line has a lot more experience this year. I mean, you look across the board, we have juniors and seniors in almost every spot. But if you're unfamiliar with your role and you're not gelling, I don't care what you're doing. I mean, you can take it out of football, and you put anything into a team situation, and suddenly, because you really don't know the tendencies of everybody within that position, there's a lot of room for error. In being on the offensive line, you have to be a well-oiled machine. I mean, it throws everything. It throws your passing game. I mean, you can have the best quarterback in the world, but if he's having to run for his life every time he snaps the ball, we have an issue. We have fantastic running backs, but good Lord, I mean, if you're having to depend upon the athleticism and the field vision of a running back every single play, you're really shooting yourself in the foot, and it also lessens your ability to call certain plays because of the lack of playability along your offensive line. So I agree with Jason 100%. Offensive line. I also, taking kind of goes back to the quarterback if we can get the ball. But one particular area that I really feel like has been unfairly scrutinized is our wide receiving core. Last year they were shocked if the ball was even close to them. We saw a lot of overthrown balls. Let's take, for instance, Greg McElroy. He said this, and to me, it really summed up the entire season for me. We were playing, I can't remember who we were playing against. It might have been Boston College, and we had Ngata running a seam, and he was wide open. And when I say wide open, I'm talking I could have picked you up and thrown you down the field and probably got you close. And the ball sailed 20 yards over his head, over Ngata's head. And I remember McElroy said, it's hard to explain away why you overthrow a wide open 6'3" wide receiver. And so I feel like our wide receiving core has taken so much of a hit because of the poor quarterback play. So I'm looking forward to seeing them pull together and really kind of show that they are who they are. We had some injuries on the with the wide receivers. So that's my A and B, but definitely our O-line is really going to decide, I believe, a lot for us.
So I certainly can't challenge you guys when it comes to Clemson football analysis, but from what I watched last year, I will say that those wide receivers, after becoming very accustomed to watching a wide receiver room that was arguably the best in the country for a 6 to 8 year span, I saw wide receivers that didn't, in addition to just dropping passes, just flat out dropping passes, didn't high point the ball, outfight defenders on one-on-one situations where we were just accustomed to fill in the blank, Mike Williams, Artavis Scott, etc. down on the line, DeAndre Hopkins, Sammy Watkins, of course, all those guys, Martavis Bryant, just being able to out-physical a defender, whether it's from a boxing out standpoint, just being a better leaper, better timing, better hands, all that. I didn't see that fight and that athleticism, that combination of those two that make, in that situation, make a great receiver. A lot of things make a great receiver, but when the ball's in the air and it's just you and your man and you haven't beaten them, they're right there. It's about athleticism and it's about who wants that ball more. And I used to see that so much more out of those other Clemson receivers than I saw it out of this group.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's been a standard in place at Clemson regarding wide receiver play set by some of those guys you just mentioned, and I don't think it was anywhere close to being met last year. Now, how much poor quarterback play factored into that, we'll never know, but I don't think it was anywhere close to meeting the standard that we've seen at Clemson over the years at wide receiver. And it even goes as far as some of the blocking. Those guys from the past used to take pride in their blocking on the perimeter, and I didn't see a whole lot of that last year. It's one thing I'm gonna be watching over the next few weeks. Usually there's one guy that's kind of that alpha dog of the group. They didn't have that last year, and I'm kind of curious to see if somebody kind of grasps that that role with both hands this year and takes it over. I'm kind of thinking maybe this is finally Joseph Ngata's year to stay healthy and break out. Maybe he takes over that role, kind of becomes a leader of that group, and hopefully he can stay on the field.
Yeah, there is an element of personal play versus team play, and I think especially with guys this age, sometimes they're you look at all three of us here. We're older. I'm putting that politely for all of us, but we're older, and you realize once you get a little older that it really doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. It does, but you personally, you have to go out there and do your job. You have to do your job, and you try your very best not to let what everybody else is doing influence you. And I think we saw a lot of that last year. I think coming out of that Georgia game, you saw players who were like, we lost the game. How they lost the game. Georgia couldn't score an offensive touchdown, but they didn't have to because we scored it for them. And so you come back to that and you look at the individuals probably slumping their shoulders. Maybe they were open and DJ didn't see them. And suddenly it starts this nasty cycle within the wide receiver room, But you're right, Jason. We have to have an alpha male out there who's gonna fight for the ball. I hope it's Ngata. The other bright spot that I have is Beau Collins. Now, Beau Collins, man, he was a player that I was really looking forward to seeing last year. Just a talented player, very, very aggressive within his experience level. I'm looking forward to seeing E.J. Williams. If he had some health problems last year, in 2020 he had a pretty doggone good season, and last year it just never meshed, and he had some health problems. I'm hoping that we get to see him. But I agree with you. There has to be some personal. Each player is going to have to decide, I'm going to go out and play well and block and run my route, even if I know the ball's not coming to me. I'm going to run it convincingly, or else, no matter how great our defense is, no matter how great our running backs are, and no matter how much talent we have here and there, I think we have one of the best tight ends in the country. We have a fantastic tight end room. It's going to be all for naught. We can skate by those first 4 games pretty much. I know Wake Forest is, they could give us definitely a game. Then you got NC State, and they return the majority of their defense. So you're going to have to play against that. You will not play. You will not play uninspired football against NC State and think that you're going to get out of that game with a win, even though it may be at Death Valley. So I'm with you. These guys are going to have to start taking personal ownership of their personal performance and then gel as a team, because if Cade comes out there and that energizes them, great. But what happens if Cade comes out there and he throws a couple of balls into the ground? Are they just going to, fold up their tents and say, yeah, it is what it is. We'll wait for another great quarterback. That can't happen.
You mentioned Beau Collins, and I'm high on both those Collins kids. I expect Beau and Dakari Collins to both take big steps in their development this year and be leaps and bounds ahead of where they were a year ago. And those are, particularly Beau Collins, those were 2 pretty good receivers as freshmen. But the one you mentioned that I don't think gets talked about a lot is E.J. Williams. That's a starting wide receiver for Clemson this year. He's got, assuming he's healthy coming out of camp, he's going to be a starter. Clemson needs that guy making plays in this offense. He's got to stay healthy. We saw what he could do in 2020. He had multiple injuries last year. So assuming he stays healthy, that's another guy along with Ngata that I'm curious to see how it plays out for him.
And think about the kid we got out of Dutch Fork. I know he's a true freshman, and I don't know if they're going to redshirt him, Jason. You might have some an inside track on that one, but everybody's talking about our wide receivers really don't have a speed threat. Well, this Antonio, I think his name's Antonio Williams. Forgive me if I've got Antonio Williams out of Irmo. We played at Dutch Fork, one of the best programs in the United States. They won like 5 or 6 state championships in a row. This kid is fast. I mean, he is quick. But we already have a lot of players who are going to start, who are going to fight through, and as long as there's no injuries, as you said, I don't know if you want to risk eligibility with him at this point, but we'll see. I think that if our wide receivers can pull it together, and they can stay healthy, you're looking at a wide. Don't be shocked if our wide receiver room, if they pull it together. There's the asterisk. If they pull it together, don't be shocked if we're back to wide receiver U. But it goes back to them as a team deciding that they're going to pull it together.
Yeah, I think it's possible that we see Antonio Williams take a red shirt. He wasn't an early enrollee, so he's just now getting to campus. But I've watched Antonio Williams play live, and he's quick as a hiccup. He is going to be very good in this offense. I've been high on him for a long time. I thought for a while there Clemson wasn't even going to offer the kid, and they finally did late in the cycle, and he jumped on board pretty quick. But I've been a fan of him for a long time, and I was 100% sold on him when I went and watched him play last year. But, yeah, I do think Clemson did lack speed with the wide receivers last year, mostly due to injuries, but I think they'll have more of that this year. Troy Stellato is a burner, man. He can fly.
I was about to ask you about him.
He's another guy that's got to stay healthy, though. He got hurt again in the spring. He's just not been able to stay healthy, and he's got to prove that he can. If you're unavailable every day, you're not doing the team a whole lot of good. And I'll tell you another guy that can fly is Will Taylor. I think Will Taylor is going to be a big part of the offense this season. I fully expect Brandon Spector to be the starter in the slot, come week 1 in Atlanta. But I think Will Taylor is going to play, and I think he's going to play a lot, and I think he's going to be a big part of things.
So between Spector and Taylor, I know that this bar is rather high when you throw out the names Adam Humphries and Hunter Renfrow, but can either one of those guys have that kind of impact?
I think that Will Taylor absolutely can. He is one heck of an athlete. He's a two-way guy. Probably could have been a first-round Major League Baseball draft pick had he chosen to go that route. I've had more than one guy say that Taylor reminds them of Hunter Renfrow, except he's just faster. So, that's pretty high praise. I'm telling you, I think Will Taylor is going to have a major impact on this offense this season.
If you listen to everything that we're talking about, everything is hinging on health, and personal effort. I almost think to a point that there are teams out there, especially within our league, who just has been dominated by us. And then outside of our league, that until last year, we had a horrible season at 10-3. It was, I was ticked that we lost the games that we lost, but we still finished 10-3. I can remember for many years the idea of winning 10 games was the goal. And we couldn't get there. I don't care who we recruited. I don't care how much dollars spent on making Death Valley look better. We couldn't get there. And last year was a bad season for us. Now, I have my opinions about certain things. Like I wonder how Wes Goodwin got hired at Clemson without ever playing at Clemson. It's just, I go off on that tangent a little bit, and of course, just for fun. But at the same time, there are a lot of people on the outside looking in. They are hoping that our team is going down, because for us, it's not that we don't have the talent at wide receiver. It's that we need them to be healthy, and we need to get them motivated. And then, of course, the big, it's not even an elephant in the room. It's like a skyscraper, quarterback play. If we get that straightened out, I can look down our schedule, and I have it in front of us because I can't remember it off the top of my head. But I'm telling you, we will blitz through that if we get those things fixed. But that's part of running a football team. And every team, Minnesota lost their best running back first game of the year against Ohio State. And had that cat continue to play, there's a great chance Minnesota would have won that game and won more games. But guess what? That's part of that's one of the variables of the game that is absolutely terrible. It's good health. And when you're hitting people, and when you're practicing all the time, and probably doing some things outside of practice you shouldn't be, it's going to happen. But I see people has their fingers crossed that Clemson, especially their team as a whole. Now, they won't say much about defense because they know the truth there, but especially when it comes to offense, they have their fingers crossed that our team is not as talented as it actually is. And I think it's kind of a dark room back in the corner. They're hoping, please don't let them be this good. And yeah, the offensive line needs to get straightened out. We need to get our quarterback situation straightened out. But our wide receivers, as long as they stay healthy and they take their assignment personal, good luck. That's all I say. Good luck, because across the board, you're lining up against somebody who could easily take you, even if you're a really good player.
Speaking of injuries and the impact of injuries, just here in the last 24 hours, Lambton Zanders, the safety, has stepped away from football. So what is the impact there?
It absolutely hurts your depth. I think Zanders would have been a big contributor from off the bench. But I don't think it hurts you too bad. You still got guys like Andrew Makuba, Jalen Phillips, R.J. Mickens, and probably, like he says right here, it probably gets Sherrod Koval on the field a little bit faster. And I think that's a kid that's got an extremely high ceiling. He was here for the spring. We saw some flashes of what he could do in the spring game. So, I mean, make no mistake, it hurts you from a depth standpoint, but he was not going to win a starting job or anything like that. And Clemson did, he got hurt on the third or fourth play of the season last year and missed the rest of the season. So it's not like this is a loss they haven't already been dealing with. I hate it for him, man. I was hoping he could come back and finish off his career on a high note. You never want to see somebody have to retire because of the injuries. But, outside of depth, I think Clemson will be okay on the back end.
I agree with you 100%. Somebody said this is their first time with hearing Bobby give meaningful analysis. Listen, sir, I can flip this hat around and go total stupid in a blink of an eye. I'm a father of two. I have a 15-year-old. He'll be 16 in a couple of weeks. Bobby Durkins Jr. and Bobby Durkins Jr. is 6. When I think about these guys playing, it's fun to analyze them as players and see them as part of the Clemson team and so on. But, as a father, I stepped back and I said, man, if I saw my kid go out there and bust his butt and, make it to a team like Clemson, when you get to a team like Clemson or an Alabama or Ohio State or Georgia, there's been a lot of hard work put into that. And to see him struggle with the injuries and then have to just walk away from football, and you're only weeks away from we play, September 5th in Atlanta? That's a Monday night. To see him have to walk away within a month of that hurts me as a dad. I feel bad for him. I really do feel bad for him. On the team side, Jason's right. I mean, there was questions about his playability even when he was healthy. So they already had plans in place that he would be a contributor and he would probably play a lot. And that does help. That does hurt with the depth chart. But at the same time, I mean, Makuba, man, what a story last year. That guy was ridiculous. You have Mickens coming out, as you were talking about, and Jalen Phillips. Our secondary, I believe, will be fine unless we start experiencing some health problems. And but I wish him the best, and I hate it for him.
Let's see, Penn State, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, LSU. Now, as of a couple hours ago, South Carolina are all live fall camp previews we've delivered. Clemson now, Jason Priester, allclemson.com on SI, and Brian Knight, a.k.a. Bobby Durkins, on YouTube. And again, we just wrapped up South Carolina about 25 minutes before we started here. And for some reason, they wanted to say hi, so I don't know why South Carolina would want to say hi to Clemson at this point. It's been a long, long time, but and 30-0, but you'll see them in November.
Hey, Mark, I'm going to be honest with you. I did not watch that South Carolina video that you posted, and I was laughing that it was right before us. But I was wondering, when you actually did that preview, did you just simply grab a garbage can and puke in it and then ended the video? I was wondering, is that how you went about it? Because, I mean,
that certainly is my style, isn't it?
Oh,
yeah.
Well, Durkins, he actually told me, and I know the guy pretty well.
Yeah.
He told me that he was going to do a preview for them, and in years past, he's been more nice about it. And I think 2020 had a really bad something happen to him. I think he's part of militia now. But anyway, he said he's going to preview them by just taking a dump in a trash can, and that would be the end of the video. So
there's the preview.
Yeah, that's the preview.
Things do change. You never know. 2014 did happen, right? 2013 to 2014. There was anybody under the age of about 20 or so, 20 or 25. This series looked different about 10 years ago.
Not the overall
I need
series.
to remind anyone?
Not the overall series.
Not the overall series.
Yeah,
let's not the series.
Yeah, they had that 5-year run. They had that 5-year run that they thought they were going to take over everything, and then, much to their dismay, their coach quit midseason on them. And no matter how much time passes, history will always remember that. The fighting on the sidelines between the defensive coaches. That's I tell you this, when I begin to feel bad about myself, I go back to that clip. I sit there and watch that fight on the sidelines, and I go, at least I'm not coaching a team with my defensive coaches fighting. And then I just put a pep in my step. I'm ready.
It sure did flip. Wow. Yeah. It has flipped. All right. But we got a team in transition to a certain extent, even though this is one of the more stable programs in the country. New OC, new DC, and we got Joe Long. Of course, we've got a lot of non-Clemson fans here asking about the Clemson Tigers for 22, and new defensive coordinator Wes Goodwin. What can we expect out of him, and should we have confidence that he's going to make this a seamless transition?
I think it's going to be pretty seamless. I know a lot of people, when this hire was made and they heard the name Wes Goodwin, the first response was probably who? If you follow Clemson real closely, you probably heard the name. But, some people that follow the program closely might not even know who he was. But he's been Venable's right-hand man for quite some time. In fact, Venables wanted to take him to Oklahoma with him, and Dabo Swinney was not letting that happen. But, I think this defense is in fine hands under the guidance of Wes Goodwin. I don't expect monumental changes, some tweaks here and there. He talked about making things simpler, wanting the players to be able to play faster. But outside of that, I don't expect a whole lot of change. I think it's going to be a fairly smooth transition, and we'll see the same aggressive Clemson defense that we have for the past decade or so.
I was one of those guys who I was like, Wes Good, huh? Did you say Wes Craven? He stopped making movies and now he's coaching at Clemson? I tell you where he won me over, and in another life that is totally different than this one, I'm actually in the corporate world. And I will tell you, one of the things I look for when I'm meeting people who is in leadership is I like to hear what they say. I'm not saying how smooth they talk. It's what's the content of what they say. And the first interview I heard with him, Jason, was what won me. I said, of course, he's got a coach, and he could go out there and mess up. It was his persona. When he was asked questions about taking over for Venables, first of all, he was appreciative to Venables and the team that they would give him a chance, and he talked about everything that he learned. But then he turned around and he had almost a Bill Belichick kind of closed in persona when he was talking about, hey, I just want to implement everything that I've learned, and I just want to make sure that we're the best that we can possibly be. He was not talking Dabo Swinney talking points. And that's one of the things that, especially in the corporate world, and anybody who worked in the corporate world, when you meet people who regurgitates almost line for line what the executive team says, that's not always a good thing. That a lot of times can mean that they're the suck up who was playing golf with someone who just got the job, but them personally, they're terrible at their job, and they'll throw you under the bus to become part of the executive team. And I have unfortunately met more of those than I've met good leaders. Wes Goodwin won me on that interview, and then he went out. And I know it's just a bowl game. It wasn't against one of the upper echelon teams, but for him to take over and have to fill the shoes of a man that I wholeheartedly believe that without him, we wouldn't have won those national championships. That was a big deal. And he's done it so far with a lot of grace, and he's very chill, and I like that. The one that I'm concerned about, I'm just going to throw this out there, and I don't want to take us off on a rabbit trail. I'm concerned about Streeter. I am concerned about him. Jason's way more on the inside than I am, but kind of outside looking in, I'm concerned about Streeter. I know that he has a long history with the team. I actually feel like he was an underrated football player when he played at Clemson. He was under a terrible system. I mean, he was part of a team that in the first year with Tommy Bowden went to Virginia Tech and almost beat Michael Vick in Virginia Tech. I mean, he was a good football player. But I felt like I feel like that he, to me, has more to prove than Wes Goodwin. And I'm going to leave it at that because I have no personal ill will towards him. It's just I listened to his interview and I've seen some things that makes me question, is he really the right man for the job? As to where Wes Goodwin, after that interview and seeing him coach, I really believe he is the man for the job, and he will just have to prove me wrong. But on the other hand, I think Streeter is going to have to prove me right, which I know he's not worried about me with the money that he's making.
Yeah. That first interview, I remember it well. We were all kind of sitting over there waiting on Wes Goodwin to come over, and I'll never forget, man. He finally comes out and he says, "Come on, y'all. I know this is the one y'all been waiting on." Just kind of broke the water in a kind of a comedic way, man. And it's kind of been smooth sailing, ever since the few times he has met with the media. But, you bring up a good point with Brandon Streeter, and I do think he's got a tough job on his hands. I'm of the opinion that the Clemson offense has gotten a little stale in recent seasons. It needs a fresh set of eyes on it. It needs some tweaks as far as the way the plays are called, some of the actual plays in the playbook. And if you listen to Streeter and Kyle Richardson talk during the spring and a couple weeks ago, that those kind of things have been taking place. They're, like Wes Goodwin said, they were looking to do on the defense. Those two guys that are doing the same thing on the offensive side of the ball. They're trying to make things a little more simple. Take a lot of the stuff that they never use out and change a little bit of the terminology. And while I do think that there's going to be a lot of pressure on Streeter, especially after the way the offense played last year, I think he is the right guy for the job at the right time. He's kind of patiently waited his turn. He's had other opportunities to go elsewhere, turned them down, stay at Clemson. I go back to his days at Richmond, and those were some pretty good offenses he ran while he was the offensive coordinator there. And no, it's not Clemson. The pressure's not the same. It's not comparable from a pressure standpoint. But those were pretty good offenses, man. And he knows how to call plays. And I'm pretty confident in his ability from that standpoint. But make no mistake, I fully believe there is going to be a lot of pressure on Streeter and Richardson to get that offense turned around and kind of get it humming back on all cylinders like Clemson fans have become accustomed to seeing before last year. It'll be interesting to see exactly how much of Kyle Richardson's influence is on this team. He's got an air raid background. Do we see any of that kind of mixed in, any wrinkles or anything? So it's going to be fun to watch.
I think one of the things you hit there, it was talking about the underperformance of our offense over the past few years. And we came out of that national championship against Bama, and you have a quarterback who had one of the most storied seasons of all time, all the way down to the time that he took over. I mean, everything swirling around that was a mess. He handled it very well. You have Travis Etienne, who was just, my God, what a freak. And all those players, T. Higgins, who was playing in the Super Bowl this past year. I mean, we had a team. It was a ridiculous team. Hunter Renfrow, third and rent throw. You throw the ball anywhere near the guy, he's going to catch it. And then after that, we saw a lot of the same team walk out on the field. They were playing in the ACC is not a tough conference. I mean, admittedly, it's not tough. It's not playing in the Big South or whatever conference you would want to name out, but it's and they could walk out and play half-hearted and still steamroll everyone. Why? Because they're that good. That good. You can walk out and you can do it, and then you get into the playoff, and then you start playing teams who are more focused. You're playing against guys who's like yourself, and the LSU game. The LSU game. I know LSU's great and blah 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 blah. I wonder how the LSU's doing now. Anyway, you have those teams. We were leading that game, and I think some of the stale offensive play calling, the comfortable play calling, cost us that ball game. I don't care if Joe Burrow was on the other side. We had go back to that roster and look who was on that roster. And my point in saying all of that is, I have been beating the drum about our offensive play calling for about 3 years now, because all you have to do is walk it. It's hard to mess up Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. It's hard to mess that up. I mean, you would have to be a special kind of idiot to mess that up. But then you get in a player like DJ that you have to grow, and you're going to have to work on him. He's got there's when I say psychological, I'm not talking about personal mental issues. I'm talking about on the field. He's got psychological issues. He walks out. He seems totally lost. He doesn't seem calm, and that's going to be big. We all know that. But it's also the coaching staff. You said making things simpler, taking out things that we don't need there. That's what we need. That's what we need. We need to get this offense congealed from the line to the wide receivers to the play caller, whoever, or the quarterback, whoever that is. We're going to have that, because, as I said, the first 4 games is Georgia Tech, Furman, Louisiana Tech, at Wake Forest, which there'll be more Clemson fans at Wake Forest that day than there will be Wake Forest fans. And then we have NC State. We have 4 games to right the ship and get these wrinkles ironed out. It's not like last year where you had a national championship implication game day 1. We can right the ship, and we could go undefeated. We could go to the playoff. We can make a run at it. But if we don't use the talent that we have and get everybody on the same page, NC State we could definitely lose. At Notre Dame, we could definitely lose. We could lose Miami, because who knows? I think Miami made the first good coaching hire that they've made in 20 years. And then South Carolina, everybody, I have not had a stroke. I think South Carolina might be just jazzed enough and happy enough with some of the new players that they have and the energy they have. I think they could give us a game this year. And we need to get on the same page when we use our talent, and we need to stop playing around with poor play calling on the offensive side of the ball. So I agree with you 100%, Jason.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point about the first 4 games and the ease of those games. And, if Clemson doesn't come out and light up the scoreboard in week 1 against Georgia Tech, and let's say DJ throws for 175 yards, completes 65% of his passes, maybe 1 touchdown, 1 interception, people's going to be calling for Cade Klubman. You know what I'm saying? Even if he doesn't play horribly. But I think this is going to be a process, and I think it's going to, for this offense, it might not be game 1. It might take those first 4 games. You got a new staff in place. You got a quarterback that is coming off of, subpar season. So I think it's going to be a process. I think they're going to use those first 3 or 4 games to kind of see what works, see what doesn't work, develop an identity, and work some of the kinks out. But by the time you get through those 4 games, I think you're going to know exactly where things stand.
I say, which, by the way, I say a buddy Pigskin Pete. Pigskin, you couldn't make it. I know what it is. He lives down there in Mount Pleasant, and he's probably out there on the beach having a little fruity drink, and he doesn't want to hang out with us. My friend, I've read your mail.
Couldn't make it.
Couldn't make it. Yeah, he's down there eating that fresh shrimp off the coast. But I think for me, Jason, I agree. Those first 4 ball games, it's almost like God has went, I'm going to give you this platter of opportunity in these first 4 ball games. You're going to get your chance. You're going to get to try to iron out all the wrinkles. But my thought on DJ, I hope the guy, for him personally, as I said, I'm a parent. I hope the best for these guys. I really do. As a football fan, if he's going to get it together, I hope he gets it together. But if he is not going to improve, I hope against Georgia Tech he comes out and throws 3 picks in the first half and makes the decision for the coaching staff. That would be the best case scenario, because you remember last year when we lost to Georgia, once again, they stopped us, we stopped them. It was just we turned the ball over and they won the ball game. Well, that's how the cards fall. I mean, that's just the ball. That's the ball game. But the game that let us know that our offense was in trouble was the Georgia Tech game at Clemson. When Georgia Tech held us to 14 flipping points. We couldn't move the ball. I know old women who could have lined up against Georgia Tech and moved the ball better than we did against them. That was the asterisk game. That's when we went, it wasn't Georgia's greatness. It was our offensive lackadaisical approach. We have no leadership on the offensive side of the ball. And what ended up happening was our offense was going on the field and off the field, like they were being shuttled off. Just on the field, off the field. And our defense is fantastic. Ended up paying the ultimate price, having to stay on the field over and over and over and over. And guess what happened? Injuries. And to me, the Georgia Tech game, I hope that if DJ comes out and throws for 500 yards and looks like a genius, thank God. But if he is going to end up just having a lackluster season, please throw 3 interceptions in the first half, and we can bench you, please. I beg you. I'll give you coupons, if you will, please.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I think a big part of Clemson's offense last year was I think Georgia broke it, plain and simple. I think that Georgia game had a monumental impact on that Clemson offense. That offensive line got whipped in that game. The receivers got whipped. DJ took a beating probably like he's never taken in his career. And I'm not sure he ever got over it mentally. I don't know any other way to say it. I watched that game from the sidelines, and it was, I just couldn't believe what I was watching, the way Clemson got manhandled on the offensive side of the ball. Don't misunderstand. I knew Georgia's defense was going to be good, but I never imagined in a million years Clemson's offensive line was going to be that bad. It was that bad.
Yeah. And our defense kept walking right back out on the field, doing their thing, lining up. I mean, it was like it was almost like Two-Face. I don't know if anybody ever watched the old Batman, and there was Two-Face. On one side was normal, on the other side was this monster. And it was like Clemson, it was like the wheel of 2 totally different teams, but they all wore Clemson jerseys. If I'm a defensive player on Clemson's side, that there has to come a point that they're looking at their teammates, who they go out and hang out with, and their friends, etc. They have to be looking at them going, guys, we still have fight. The game is not over. We're walking out there. We're having to work harder because you can't move the ball. I mean, don't you have any personal pride? I mean, don't you care about, heck, us? I mean, we just got to keep going out there. But I'm with you, Jason. I've never seen our offense in the Sweeney era since he has the players coming in that he wanted. I've never seen them just lay down and die and go, yep, all right. Well, I guess they trained harder and they want it more.
Jason, your philosophy on the Georgia game and the impact on the offense. How else do you explain? I've got to buy into that theory, because how else do you explain a quarterback who had never taken meaningful snaps the year before, throws for 340 against BC, a decent team, and throws for 440 at Notre Dame on the road in that environment against that defense, and then the next year his best game is 240 against UConn? in 13 games played.
Yeah, I don't have any other explanation for it. You know, I got a photo that I took of DJ Uyunglele in that game, you know, sitting on the bench late in that game in Charlotte, and the look on his face, you know, it's kind of like a deer in headlights. That's the way I always described it. No, I'm not sure he ever got over that game. That's just my personal assessment. You know, I have no way of knowing whether that's true or not. One of my colleagues actually asked him that question in Charlotte a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, I think his answer was, you know, obviously they were disappointed by the loss, and that's as far as he went with it. But I think it went a little deeper than that myself, and I think it extended beyond the quarterback position. I think it had an impact on the entire offense. And, you know, I don't think DJ was ever fully healthy after that game either. I think he got beat up in that game, and he was never 100% after that night. But we're going to know pretty quick, you know, if he's going to be improved or if he's not. If we're going to see the DJ of 2020 or if we're going to see the DJ of 2021, we're going to know pretty quick. You know, even if Clemson doesn't come out and put up 65 on Georgia Tech, we'll be able to watch DJ's play and get a good gauge of where he's at and where he's headed.
Yeah, Pigskin Pete, we do miss you, man. So always appreciate you being here. Some tech issues at home, but Pigskin Pete, we miss your take, but we will get it at some point. Joey Foster with actually the most important comment of the day, as he typically delivers, because he bought a new carburetor for his lawnmower, used the Voice of College Football Amazon link. So that's the important part right there. So use the Amazon link down in the description section for anything that you need to purchase from Amazon. That place is worth $1.6 trillion. I looked it up. So why send all your money to them? If you're throwing $100 at Amazon, you might as well send like one or two my way. They got 1.6 trillion. I'm a little shy of 1.6 trillion, so I'd like to catch up. So we're working on that. All right. Before we go any further, I want to make sure everybody knows where to find these two. So we got Brian down here on the end, aka Bobby Durkins, right here on YouTube. Otherwise, you know, what do you got going, Brian?
Well, I normally take off during the off season. That's one of the things that I've done over the past few years, and I love it because everyone will come onto my comment section throughout the months and basically wonder if I'm dead or not. And then I always show back up. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the college football season. I'm looking forward to seeing Clemson play. The very first game of the year, I say very first game of the year, but I'm actually taking my sons down to the Coastal game with Army. I'm going to go down there and see that. My Bobby Durkins Jr. is a big Coastal fan, so we're going to go down there and see that game. I'm going to try to catch some Clemson games, and of course, bring out my redneck friend. I think he's drunk right now, but and he's also trying to work out something with Bud Light with a truck. I don't know. I think he's trying to go to work for them so he can steal said truck so he can have a full supply of beer for the next couple of years.
Well, I don't know if you saw the comment that we put on the screen for quite a while there. George had an NIL opportunity there for Bobby Durkins with a moonshine distributor there.
If he could work that out, and if it's I'm telling you, I'm up for it. I'm definitely up for it. But I actually ran into somebody, Ray Fuego. I ran into him a couple of weeks ago, and Lego My Fuego. I think that's his online personality. But ran into him a couple of weeks ago, and it was odd because I'd never seen him before. And he said, Bobby Durkins. And I was out with my family. It was after church. So I was kind of shocked. But no, I'm looking forward to the season, and I'm looking forward to getting back to being stupid and ticking people off. And yeah, I got a few surprises I'll reveal a little later on. But yeah, so on to the more important one, which is Jason, because Jason's more intelligible. Me, I just spew a bunch of nonsense, and then Jason comes in, cleans up.
That's debatable.
We like to mix it up.
I didn't say I asked you.
We can't have too many brains in one room at the same time. Well, before we introduce Jason again and let everybody know where you can find him, we've got a Clemson channel, so we've got about 100 and some on the line. who knows who's on the main channel versus the Clemson channel, but we basically have a Clemson channel, and I don't believe we would have a Clemson channel without Jason, because Jason joins me just about every week to break down Clemson football, so you can catch those segments over on our Clemson channel. But most notably, you want to get to allclemson.com with Jason right there. So what have you been working on?
I spend the summers, mostly following recruiting. I'm the recruiting guy over at allclemson.com. So June, July, a lot of recruiting for me, especially as hot as Clemson's been on the recruiting trail the last couple months. But I that's kind of going to start taking a back seat with the season kicking off tomorrow. I'll go into more on this current team, and we'll see where the chips fall.
As Pigskin Pete says here, Jason is the voice of reason. Me and Bobby exist to confuse people.
You know what I love about it is, like, Jason comes on here and everybody knows that this is Jason. With me here, they're kind of confused, but when they go, I'm going into 6 years as Bobby Durkins, and I know Pigskin Pete can probably attest for this, that there are people, especially with me doing the whole personality thing, they are still trying to figure out whether I'm real or not. And that is a lot of fun.
I bet it is.
It's a hoot. It's easy to score hot.
I've experienced it myself, as you well know, Brian. We've mixed it up with the Florida State guys, the Miami guys, and brought you on, and you've broken into character or carried it through the entire show from start to finish. And the other guys didn't know what was going on. Like, is this? They thought, you had them sold.
Yeah, I think that one time I ate Chick-fil-A through the entire thing and smacked and just kind of. And what was so funny was, I guarantee that a lot of them was probably like, man, this guy's been drinking. And I was drinking unsweet tea. But that's fun. That was fun. I know that I wear you out when you're in. It's like, yeah, you're like, just come on as yourself, please. So, please.
We used to have you on for short spurts.
Yeah.
A little 10-minute segment.
Yeah.
So since we haven't had you on during all this realignment, expansion business, and the ACC, is it in jeopardy? Does it need to stabilize and go out and get anyone else? Where do you stand on that? There's a camp that says, the ACC can stabilize, grab Notre Dame, maybe somebody else, or should Clemson run to the SEC, or even the Big Ten is on the table possibly?
I tell you this, I have way too many thoughts and only one mouth. First of all, I want to mourn college football. There are certain things I like brand new. I like this, that, and the other. College football, one of the reasons people like college football is because it's traditional. I'm a tradition guy. When I think of Big Ten football, I think of Ohio State and Michigan. I don't think of Southern Cal. I think of the Pac-10, Pac-12, If we are going to throw the match on this sucker and burn it down, I say let's burn it down. Let's not lie to ourselves and play. I say Clemson leaves and goes to the SEC. I would be totally fine with that. And if we go to the SEC and we're not playing Georgia every year, shame on whoever, let that happen. As far as NIL goes, I have no problems with people paying the players to a point. I just throw this out there. I just went back to school, graduated on my bachelor's and my MBA. It's against what a lot of people think, but a college education actually costs money, and they have been receiving education for quite a while. So that does cost money. If you go somewhere like North Carolina, it's probably about $70,000, $80,000 a year. So they have been paid in some sense. Also, the NIL deal, I know that we hear about these, what I like to call superheroes or martyrs on their team, where they do make a lot of money and they share it with their teammates. But the whole idea about NIL was, players who didn't have the money to support their family they were going to receive money and blah, 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 blah. Well, that's only if they get an NIL deal that's worth a crap. So the guys who were already getting taken care of, and they're going to go to the NFL draft and be taken in the first round, those guys are still making money hand over fist, and the guys who are poor are still poor. Here's what I'm proposing. Let's get rid of the NCAA. Let people go ahead and buy the players that they want. And if a booster wants to give $10,000 to a 3-star player because their family's suffering at home, let them do it. Let's get this charade over with and let's move forward, because all we're doing now is we're watching money being laundered in front of us and calling it an NIL deal. So between those two things of conference realignment, if we're going to burn down college football, let's go ahead and burn it down. Let's stop playing this game, because there's something special about college football. It's one of the reasons that I watch college football and I will not watch the NFL very rarely, because you find out that $100 million still isn't enough. I need 150. And if I have $150 million, well, now I need 200 million. It's never ending. It's not going to change, and it's going to get dirtier and dirtier. So either we're going to keep the tradition, or we need to burn it down. So I know that's really pessimistic and vile, but that's kind of how I feel.
Well, that's why I threw it out there. I would take off on that, but people can hear me rant and rave here for 30 or 40 hours a week. So I've got other platforms. That's why I got a channel. I can strike it up anytime I want. So we're going to keep it focused on Clemson. Is the NC State game, is that the game? Do we think it all could hinge on that game in terms of Atlantic Division, and that's the deal?
In my opinion, that's the game. I think that's a game that this team probably has had circled on the calendar for a while. You won't hear any of them say that publicly, but especially the way, some of those guys and Dave Dorn celebrated after the game, which was understandable. It was his first time beating Clemson. Big win for the Wolfpack, yada, yada, yada. But, yeah, I think this is a humongous game when you look at the ACC and the ACC Atlantic in particular. I know a lot of people are high on Wake Forest, but I don't know. I don't see Wake Forest as a threat to Clemson. I think they're a terrible matchup for Clemson, or if you're looking at it from the Clemson standpoint, it's a perfect matchup for Clemson. They match up so well with that offense and have never had many problems with it. But yeah, to me, it comes down to that North Carolina State team. Bobby touched on it earlier. They bringing back so many players, pretty much the entire team. Bringing back that quarterback, could be the player of the year in the ACC. It's what I'm calling, it's what I've called a revenge game for Clemson. After they lost last year up there in Raleigh. Did not play well at all, still went to overtime, still had a chance to win. Testament to that defense and how good it is. And I think it's going to be better this year. But, there's a lot of people alive probably watching right now that weren't alive the last time NC State won in Death Valley. That game's in Clemson this year. Clemson has not lost at home since 2015. So it should make for a good one, no doubt. Because I think North Carolina State's probably a 10-win football team easy.
Yeah, everything he just said. That's the game. That is a game, and there's always been this friction between Dave Doran and Sweeney. When we won a national championship, we were up there in Raleigh, and if you want to let your emotions get the best of you and you run your mouth, I get it, but probably not too smart of an idea to do that to a team you just lost to, and then they're the upper hand in the ACC. So it's like, do I really want to tick off these guys? But it was afterwards. He said, I heard that there was a laptop on the sideline, and I demand a full investigation. He sounded like the neighbor in the neighborhood who's on the HOA who complains about everything. As he's walking his dog around the neighborhood, he's got his tape measure to see if the garbage can is too close to the curb. If he does, you'll get a stern worded letter from him. That's what Dave has portrayed himself out. And he may be a wonderful fella. I could be wrong, but I've never seen a team try so hard to lose a ball game that they said they wanted so much. I mean, they couldn't put us away, and we're playing bad, except for our defense. But that's the game for me, because before that, I said there's the first 4 ball games. Then after the NC State game, you have 3 games that are very winnable: Boston College, FSU, and Syracuse. If we win that game, I say Clemson. I'm a fan, but if Clemson wins that NC State ball game, I believe wholeheartedly that's because we've got a lot of problems fixed. And so I have it circled. If there's a Clemson football player who says they don't have that game circled, they are lying to you, because that game's massive for both teams when it comes to the division, and it was really the one that kind of unseated us last year, and so I look for some payback. But we can't pay anyone back unless our offensive line, our quarterback, and our wide receivers decides they want the game as much as our defense wants it, and our running backs. So,
yeah, you talk about that history, or that the Dave Dorn and Dabo Swinney stuff. It goes all the way back to 2015 when Clemson played in Raleigh, and one of Dorn's assistants took a swipe at Deshaun Watson on the sideline. 2016, they knock Wayne Gallman out of the game with a pretty dirty hit. He kind of brags about it on his coach's show about taking out one of the players. 2017, you got the towels, and there was one of those years where Dorn basically accused Clemson of cheating, using laptops on the sideline. So, been a lot of saltiness from the NC State side over the years, and on the Clemson side, a lot of trolling. Dabo Swinney's kind of made some trolling remarks. Let's call them what they are. He's trolled Dave Dorn a few times in the past. Made the jokes about having Amazon deliver towels in when Nick Chubb was stealing all Kelly Bryant's towels that day, and whatever. I can't remember what Dabo Swinney said about the laptop stuff, but there's been some trolling back and forth. And last year, North Carolina State finally got over that hump, and that's different. Like we both said, I definitely think that's a game that is circled on the calendar. And it's, to me, the biggest thing, it's in Clemson. It's been about 2 decades or so. I can't remember the exact date the last time North Carolina State won in Clemson, but it's been a long time, a very long time.
Jason I think it was when Phillip Rivers was the quarterback, and it was a Thursday night game, if I remember correctly, and we were supposed to play pretty competitive, and they blew the doors off of our team. I mean, it was one of those Tommy Bowden years to where, we had talent, should have done better, and got the crap beat out of us on ESPN on a Thursday night. But, yeah, it's been a long time since they beat us in the Valley.
Yep.
I was going to go try to find that game, but regardless, for the record, I kind of root for Wake Forest. I just feel bad for Wake Forest. They've got every disadvantage in the world, and that coach Dave Clawson is phenomenal. He's phenomenal. For him to churn out 8-4 records on a pretty consistent basis, and much better than that last year. But Jason's right. When you live with an offense that throws the ball all over the yard, and that's your calling card, and you've got a horrible that defense made Clemson look. That was the only game of the year they made Clemson look like a scoring machine. Prolific offense. 48 points in that game. That was the only team that pretty much got Clemson out of the teens in scoring. They were that bad on defense last year. They gave up like 60 to North Carolina. But the whole offense is predicated on throwing the ball and keeping that quarterback clean. And when you've got a wrecking crew of a defensive line that can wreck the offense, well, then you're done. And you're right. That's a bad matchup.
2003, the last time North Carolina State won in Clemson.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was Phillip Rivers. Absolutely.
Wow.
They took an Ohio State team to overtime that year in Columbus, too. They were pretty good. Good stuff. Jason, anything on the recruiting front that is out there that we could see here in the meantime?
Clemson they most recently picked up a commitment from Robert Billings last weekend. Right now, kind of waiting and seeing what's going to happen with 2023 corner Shelton Lewis. There's some reports out there that he's going to commit on the 8th. I've reached out to him. I've got no confirmation on that, but I kind of think that's what's going to happen. Kind of a kid that was expected to have committed already. Clemson kind of throws their hat in the ring a few weeks ago, and he kind of pumps the brakes, slows things down some. Was thought that he'd probably end up at North Carolina. He was at one time committed to Pitt back in early June. Then he took a visit to Arkansas, took a visit to Chapel Hill, backed off that commitment. Like I said, looked like he was going to commit to North Carolina. Clemson gets involved, and I think he's probably going to be the next addition to the recruiting class. Still waiting on wide receiver Ronan Hanafin from up in Massachusetts. Been a Clemson Notre Dame battle, and I've had Notre Dame pegged as the favorite to land him, for probably 6 weeks or so, and Notre Dame up and takes a third receiver in this class, still looking to take a fourth. And taking that many in the same class, I think that's helped Clemson. And Hanafin's been on pace to make a preseason decision, to make a commitment before the start of his senior season. And if he holds to that, then that should come sometime soon, because high school football is about to get kicked off pretty much everywhere. So those are the two guys that I've got an eye on. I think those are probably the next two additions to the class, because I really think that the pendulum has swung in Clemson's favor with Hanafin. That just based on some things I've heard. But we'll see how it plays out. But those are the two guys that I'm kind of watching to see what happens with next. Clemson still needs another defensive end. And, the position I get questioned about the most is running back. They want to take a back in this class. And, they've been very, very selective in how they've gone about recruiting those guys. I've only offered 5. Really the lone target on the board's Chris Johnson, and he's thought to be a Miami lean. So we'll see how long they stick with recruiting him, or if they decide to expand the board at some point. But Hanafin and Shelton Lewis are the two guys that I'm watching in the immediate future.
Our guy Joey Foster brings up Dabo Swinney goes 8-4. Is he on the hot seat? That would be beyond ridiculous. So if I can get one other topic out of you guys, because I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. Dabo Swinney, this guy is a polarizing entity in college football. I don't get it myself. First of all, let's look at the football first. What he has done at Clemson, I cannot liken anything to it in the last 3+ decades in college football. That he took, let's understand, for people that just think Clemson arrived 10 years ago, they didn't. They won a national championship. They were winning 8, 9, 10 games at various times, had really good teams in the 80s and early 90s, late 70s, Danny Ford, etc. They've got a history, a top 15 history. So they didn't shoot out. This was not Kansas rising from the ashes to. So they've got a strong football program and history before 2011. But elite and sustainable elite, that hasn't been done for decades, to take a non-elite and make them elite. So on the football field, what he's done can't be in any way compromised. You can say they play in the ACC, whatever. They've taken down Alabama, Ohio State consistently in postseason play. They've been remarkable. Okay, as a guy, regardless of what your beliefs or values are out there, this guy, I think he has proven to, and I'm not going to say that I know the man. I don't. If we hear bad news about Dabo Swinney a week from now, I'm not going to defend myself to say, because I'm not his best friend and I don't know him personally. But by all indications publicly, the man is authentic. He believes what he believes. He stands up for it. He loves his players. They stay with the program. I think this has been shown that they love him. They play hard for him. They vouch for him. I just think how in the world can you not like this? Now he has said a few things that I thought was stupid, and I post a video and say, Dabo, come on, that was dumb, or you're whining about that. But that's all harmless stuff. I don't know why this guy gets ridiculed as much as he does. I think he's phenomenal.
I tend to agree, and I have a hard time explaining it too, you know, outside of the fact that he was a relative unknown, you know, kind of the redneck kid, come from Alabama, made his name as a wide receivers coach, and kind of surprisingly took over for Tommy Bowden, not just in the interim role, but permanently, you know, and kind of came out of nowhere. I have a hard time explaining why he garners so much hate. And he was already garnering that kind of hate before he said some of the things that got him in trouble. You know, and a lot of the things he said have been taken out of context and twisted and misquoted. But to me, I think a lot of it is what you just touched on. He's very, you know, he makes no bones about where he stands about on issues. He has he has no problem telling you where he stands on things, and sometimes that gets you in trouble. And I think that's part of why he gets a little bit of heat. But outside of that, you know, I really don't know. I can't explain it. He seems like, I'm like you. I don't know him personally. I mean, obviously I've met him before. I've been around him a little bit, but I don't know him. But he seems very genuine, very likable, very nice guy. He makes it a point to know all of us by name. Not all head coaches do that, man. Last week we went up to Clemson, and every year, or the week before last, right before the ACC kickoff, every year they put together this event for the media. They call it the Media Olympics, where we go and, you know, do these games and stuff with the players and the coaching staff. We form teams and stuff. And Dabo lets you talk to every position coach. I don't know many college coaches doing those kinds of things for people outside of the program, especially the media. I just think he's like you said, he's very genuine. I think he's a pretty likable guy, and I can't explain some of the hate he gets.
Oh, God. Once again, this is one of those scenarios where I have one mouth and about 5,000 thoughts. Jealousy is one thing. You know, if I'm a coach or I'm a fan of a team and I look at what he's done, I'm jealous. And I'm going to look for every reason to unseat his accomplishments. That's one. Yeah, he makes some comments. I'm sitting there like, oh, God, would you please not say that? But, you know, if we're going to invalidate someone over just a few comments, you could dig in every one of our lives and you could invalidate every one of us. And so that's another thing. I have been annoyed with him not using the transfer portal. I would like to see him use it a little more. At the same time, this guy has done more for Clemson athletics than anybody. We love, you know, Frank Howard, Danny Ford. They've never accomplished what this man accomplished, and he's done it seemingly, unless, like you said, something comes out next week that, you know, it comes out that he beats his players with a you know, fossilized goat, and we don't know about it. Which the truth is that the guy is loved by his team. A lot of the university likes him, and most of the people who doesn't like him around the university, they're people who's like upset that the football team makes so much money and why they shouldn't give it to other sports that nobody likes to go and watch, you know, unless their kids play. So that's one of the other reasons. And then last, Jason said it very well when he said, you know, he stands up for what he believes in. I find it so interesting that when people go to college, they go to college or university and they believe that they're going to, you know, be exposed to all these different lines of thinking and mindsets, and you actually get there and you come to find out that no, you're supposed to think one way, and if you don't, we drag you through the mud and tell everybody you're something that you're not. But Sweeney has managed to speak his mind, be respectful, treat everyone well. And though I may not always agree with some of his coaching hires or maybe how I would like for him to use the transfer portal, I can tell you this: the guy has done it his way so far, and nothing bad has come out about him. The '80s was great if you're looking at it. We couldn't stay out of trouble. We were always in trouble with the NCAA. He has been very selective who he brings in, and I'm glad he's our football coach. And I also think that, and this is the last one, I promise I'll shut up. You have my word. I think is that there's a lot of coaches out there who they run a shady program. They will buy players when they can, and they dislike that this guy pretty much runs like a clean program. And so one of the ideas that I've passed along is that it's kind of like running into people who's like, well, sometimes you have to cheat to get ahead in life. And it's like, no, you don't have to, because if everybody lives like hell, that means we all can live like hell, and we can all cheat, and we can all steal, and we can do all these crazy things. So when a guy like Sweeney comes along, people start to feel bad that they have Dave Doran as their coach, or that they have a coach that comes out 4 years later that he was sleeping with the cheerleaders, and they hate the idea of someone running a clean program so much that they now want to sling mud at you because you're a little too clean. And so I'm proud that Sweeney's run his program like he has, and we're fortunate. I want us to win a national championship. I think we should have a national championship over the past couple of years, and there was some talent wasted. But it doesn't take away from what he's done and what we're capable of. But he's done it, and he's done it the right way.
Brian Knight, a.k.a. Bobby Durkins, I understand he's going to be resurrected here very soon on YouTube. Awesome. We can't wait for that. Brian, enjoy opening weekend with your son. That'll be a good time. Cherish those memories. I know you do. Great to see you as always. You know that. Hit me up anytime. You're always welcome.
Mark, it's always good to hear from you. And I tell you this, man, I've talked to a lot of people who's in the YouTube sports world, and I tell you this, you have a great reputation. You're one of the nicest guys, and it's always an honor to be on your show. So thank you for having me.
I appreciate it, sir. Jason, we know you're going to get tracked down by me here very soon. You know that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Anytime. All you got to do is ask, man. My pleasure. Always enjoy it.
Allclemson.com on SI. Check out Jason's work right there. It's a good read each and every time. Keep up with Clemson. If you love Clemson, that goes without saying. If you just are a college football nerd, geek that want to keep up with the big programs, check out Jason's work. Guys, this has been fun. Thank you so much for the insight, the perspective, and we will catch up soon.
Thanks, Mark.
For everybody else, I'm back at 6 to take your calls. We'll see you then.